Are you worried about your kids having food allergies and how to navigate through life making sure they don't have a deadly reaction? Today we'll be picking Ronis' brain since all three of her kids have different food allergies. She's going to share all her tips and tricks she's learned throughout the years. So grab your drinks, pop in those earphones, especially if you have little ears around, and let's dive right into episode 63. Cheers!
And I'm about to down it.
Took it to the hood.
Okay, right. All your kids have allergies, but do you and your husband have allergies?
So, I like to think that I don't have allergies. Maybe like
I like the normal one.
Maybe occasionally seasonal allergies, but my husband has so many allergies. But ladies, this is why you need to do a complete background check before you get married to these men, because
decide to have children with them.
No, seriously, like I knew
that's a deal breaker.
I knew dating, like he had asthma and he told me about all these allergies and stuff he couldn't eat, but it never dawned on me like, hello, you have kids with him, your baby's maybe allergic, but my husband has a lot of allergies, so I believe that the things that the kids are allergic to come from their father, for sure.
And his family, do they have a lot of allergies, like his siblings and stuff?
No, his brother doesn't have allergies. I know the only thing I think his brother really had an issue with that he told me was like acne at one point.
Okay, but that's
no food allergies or no seasonal allergies. No.
And his parents?
Not really, no.
Oh, that's interesting.
Him. It's him, and they tell me stories about how bad his used to be when he was a child, like to the point where he would have to. At school once he had to get taken away in an ambulance because the teacher did. That's back in the day when we had chalkboards, and the teacher or some kid did the chalk erasers like that, and he was sitting in the front, and the chalk dust went by him and next thing you know, he said his eyes were swole shut like golf balls, and the teacher had to call 911, and he had to go in an ambulance.
Heck? That
from
bad?
The top. Yep, that bad.
That kid needs to sit at the back.
There's been 2 or 3 times when he has gotten taken away from school in an ambulance because of allergies.
Side note, hold on. You guys just got a dog that's hypoallergenic, right? Mm-hmm. And has anybody had any allergic reactions or any type of
If I'm being honest, in the beginning, when we first got him, I feel like we were all even me, the perfect one with no allergies, was taking Claritin. And sometimes I give them that anyway, allergy season before they go to school, I have to give them Claritin or they'll be a mess at school. Mm-hmm. And then especially now with wearing masks at school, when we had the Santa Ana winds, I even kept my middle son Peyton home because his allergies were so bad, and with the mask he was like, Mom, I'm not gonna survive. So I kept him home. But yeah, where was I going?
The reaction to the dog.
Oh yeah, so we all had to take the Claritin in the beginning because I seen light sniffles and stuff.
Though?
Yeah, that's another thing. When you just so happened to be spring or
no,
that
it
transition.
wasn't. But I just think it was a little adjusting to it because I would see them especially, and it didn't hit all of them the same. I think that who got it the worst was probably my middle son. He was the most his eyes were watery and stuff, and he knew it too. He was like, I think I'm having a little sensitivity to Ivy.
So were you we gotta get rid of this thing?
No, because actually I remember Janelle saying that when they got their puppy, they had to do the same thing. So I piggybacked off of her. That's why I did it, because she was like, we had to take it for 2 weeks. So I kept telling the family well, Janelle said they had to take it for 2 weeks. So
we're doing the same.
Yeah, so we have a Labradoodle, and my son, he started getting reaction, sniffles, too, right? And his eyes were watering. So we were just giving him Zyrtec, and I want to say it was for a couple weeks, and then now it's fine. It's been fine.
Now
he still has the seasonal stuff, but I don't associate it with the dog
But
anymore.
didn't you get him tested, and they said he's not allergic to pets? It's more grass.
He's allergic to cats. And he has a small percentage of dogs, but it wasn't a super high one. But I asked because I know your kids have an allergic to or allergy to dogs, right?
But it's the dog dander and the saliva.
Because my nephew has come over. Yeah, because there's the 2 different things. You can be allergic to their dander or their saliva. And I think that my nephew is allergic to their saliva because he came over and I think the dog must have licked his hand and he rubbed his eyes. And oh my gosh, they got so red and puffy, and I was panicking. Because I was like,
you're not watching him anymore.
Be like hyperallergenic, but he definitely gets a reaction to to the dog. So it's just, I guess,
in the beginning too, that was what they were allergic to, because whenever the dog would like lick Peyton, he would like instantly like get this red mark and like a hive, instantly, and I'm like, ooh. I think you're a little allergic to the dog, and he's like, no I'm not
oh that's how my son was, in denial. It's complete denial, like, nope, we're not gonna get rid of it because I'm not allergic.
But it worked, like the taking it, so you got something there, because the taking it for 2 weeks, like everyone's perfectly fine with that dog now. Like, perfectly fine. No one's sneezing around her or anything.
Even with her saliva?
Even with her saliva, even if she licks Peyton now, like he doesn't turn red, which is so weird. I don't know. That's weird.
They became immune or whatever.
Unless he's hiding it.
Okay, going back.
I know, sorry guys, we went on a tangent.
After knowing that your husband had all those allergies and then you got pregnant,
you have babies with him?
Yeah, did you suspect that your baby was gonna have allergies, your firstborn?
You know what? It did cross my mind, especially with my first one. Like it crossed my mind, and early on, I feel like I really didn't like pay much attention to it until we went, and this is like the number one story we always tell. We went to a friend's house. I don't think he ever had a reaction before then to make me say like, okay, I need to like check out things, because I would. He was on. Okay. He was on formula.
He was on formula. Yeah, everything was fine.
And everything was fine. And I don't think at this time I had introduced him to a whole bunch of different things yet. And we went to a friend's house, and they had a dog, and the dog jumped on the baby and like licked his face. And I remember we were still talking, and then the girl's face that I was talking to changed, because where I was facing, I couldn't see my child at the time, and her face kind of changed, and I looked down, and my child like looked like the Elephant Man. Like his eyes were.
How old was he?
He was at the time, I think Devin was, because he walked early. He walked at 8 months. So I want to say he was 8 months, because he was walking, he was standing up. I think this was when he was 8 months. And the dog jumped on him and licked him, and both of his eyes were swelled shut. It scared me and my husband to death. It even scared them. His eyes were swelled shut. He was like breaking out in these like hives everywhere, and I was like, what happened? And she's like, I think the dog licked him. And so I remember we had to like run out and like take him to the doctor, and then that's when they were like, and they didn't even test him at the hospital, which is weird. They treated him for that, but then they were like, you want to make an appointment with your doctor and like check out his allergies. So from that point on, that's when I went and I did an allergy test. When they're that small, they only do it through blood. Once they turn, I think it's 3 now. I think before it was 5, they would do the test where they actually prick your back with the different things you can be allergic to. But at that time, he was too small to do the test, so they just did a blood test. And when the paper came back with the blood test, I was like, what in the hell? Like the paper.
What is he not allergic to?
Exactly. I'm like, okay, can he go outside? Like, I'm not even kidding. I feel like I asked that question.
He had to be in a bubble.
I was like, can he go outside?
Is he allergic to all kinds of trees and
all
stuff?
Like pine trees and grass and like things I never even heard of were on that list. He was freaking allergic to cockroaches. Like, it was
really?
Yes, it was stuff on there where I'm like, what? I mean, everything. And it was so bad. Like, that list scared me so bad that I remember, and I was a young parent too, I remember I had to join like a support group, because I was like, what am I going to do with this kid? Like, I'm about to kill him because he can't have anything.
Put him in a bubble. Yeah.
So it was very overwhelming when I got that test back. But I would advise like parents, like if you have your significant other who may have allergies and you have a small baby, I think it's always safe to get that test to see what they're allergic to before you introduce them to different things, because you never know, especially if it's a case where your husband has severe allergies. If it's just, normal and seasonal allergies, I don't think you need to worry about it. But if it's severe allergies, you don't want to introduce that child to something like peanut butter, and then that's a serious allergy, and then something happens. So we got the testing when he was 8 months with the blood test. So I kind of, from that point on, knew what to keep him away from.
Okay, so and then the other test, they pick their back with a bunch of.
Oh,
that sounds like torture.
It kind of is. It kind of is.
No wonder they keep bumping up the age.
It's hard to watch too. It's kind of bad and it's hard to watch. And I will say, I'm like a weenie when it comes to things like that with my kids. Like especially like circumcision and like when my daughter got her ears for like little stuff like that. Like I can't trauma with my kids. I don't do well. So I would cheat and like ask like my mom or my mother-in-law like
to take
can you take him to get
or your husband or no?
He would go with them because he and that seems like nothing. But I'm like, this is not bothering you. And they're like cutting off his foreskin and you have
you have
like,
one of those,
right? Does it like do tingle for you or something? But I can't do things like that. But I did go to his first appointment with the prick in the back, and thank God iPads were around because that kind of helped lighten the blow because he's laying on his stomach. And so they just literally get all this stuff and they'll do like grass and they'll put like a needle in their back with the grass. They'll put like pollen or whatever it is.
But it's not like a shot where...
No, but it's a needle. Almost like
does it
acupuncture.
Wait, it's a needle or do they insert just a little bit of the fluid?
Well, it's a needle, but they touch but you can feel the needle. Like they touch their back with the needle and put the fluid though.
So it's not like painful.
No, they're not injecting it in him, but... It is once he has an allergic reaction, because what they're doing once they prick all the back and they have numbers all over their back. And actually we can post it for some of our listeners because I believe I have a picture because I took a picture because his back and I don't think I have a back. It was bad. I don't think I have a picture of Devin's because that phone was like long gone, but I have one back then. Right? I had like a Sprint flip phone, but I have them of Peyton's and his back, like it's crazy because they have this reaction and they monitor about how big the area gets. So if it gets like so big, they're like, oh, you definitely want to stay away from beef. Like Peyton's allergic to beef, so they're like, do not give him beef because beef is one of the highest allergies for him. It's beef next to peanut butter. So they put these things on their back and then you just see your child's back and then you can't scratch it. So they're laying there and they're like, Mom. And I'm like, you can't do anything but like sit there and like rub their head or rub their hand and because you got to find out what to keep them away from. So it's like,
sounds like
it's torture. You're right. I see why they keep raising the age from 3 now it's 5.
After that experience with Devin when he was 8 months, how soon did you get your other 2 kids tested knowing that like they could possibly have allergies too?
Well, see, and what's funny, and I probably wouldn't recommend this because I probably shouldn't have did this, but I was so like afraid from seeing like all the things that Devin was allergic to and what happened to him. So some of those things I would just automatically assume to not give the other kid. Like for instance, like I would be like, oh, I'm not, when Devin was born and then Peyton was born, I'm like, well, I'm not giving Peyton peanut butter because Devin was allergic to peanut butter. So I'm sure Peyton's allergic to peanut butter, which he is, but he absolutely is. And then Harley is too. So I'm kind of happy I kind of stuck to that. But there's things that Devin's allergic to seafood, and then Peyton and Harley are not allergic to seafood.
Okay.
But then Peyton's allergic to beef, and then Harley and Devin are not allergic to beef. And then you have Harley who's allergic to pork, but Devin's not allergic. So they're all like, it's just it's literally like that, where it's like, okay,
do you have to keep a chart in your house to remind you, like, this kid can have this kid can have that?
Now I know. Like, now I know, but
I never realized you can be allergic to beef or chicken.
I never, like, even I asked the doctor, I'm like, is this common? Like, this sounds crazy. Like, I have never heard of someone allergic to beef or pork.
Your husband's not, right?
No, he's not. But the doctor said, oh, yeah, it's common.
And are all these because you tested them or because they had a reaction?
Because I tested them. And
so for your other babies, you tested them like immediately once they were born, or
I did the blood test not immediately when they were born, but when close around the time when I'm gonna start introducing them to solids. Then yes, I did do a blood test just so I can know, like, okay, let me see what I'm gonna introduce, what I'm not gonna introduce, and then sometimes there's like, once they give you your allergy test back, there's some things they may have a sensitivity to, and you can still introduce them to it, and their body will like fight it off if you introduce it to them enough, and then they'll become immune to it.
Okay.
Yeah, and so then they can have it. So the things that are like very low on there, I want to build up their immune system. So if it's super low and it's not going to kill them, then I'll give it to them so that they can build a tolerance. Like, for instance, my daughter, she loves spaghetti. Like, that's her favorite thing. Spaghetti sauce, like, that's one meal I know she'll eat all the time. However, she has a sensitivity to the sauce because of the tomatoes. So when she does eat it, she gets like a small, like, kind of like redness around her mouth and stuff, but it's not enough to the point where you want to not give it to her. Yeah, it's just like enough of giving it to her, she'll be immune to it. And I think at this point now, she's freaking almost, oh my god, is the girl almost 5 in December? She eats spaghetti without a problem. Like,
so do you carry EpiPens with you all over?
I carry. Peyton even has like a prestige EpiPen that talks to you and tell you how to do it. Yeah, it's like, okay, turn me. You turn it on, and then it's like, okay, put me on his shoulder.
Is like, that new? Like nowadays?
I got it. He's had that one for about 2 or 3 years now, so it is newer, because Devin had just an EpiPen Junior. It didn't talk and stuff. But yes, I keep EpiPen, Benadryl, and eczema cream in my purse.
And you've had to like use them all?
Oh, absolutely. And my mother-in-law keeps them in her purse. My mom keeps them. Whenever they go to someone's house, I usually send it, one? Or make sure that they have like Benadryl if they're coming to the house.
I would be scared to like
have them over.
Have to like shoot them.
I know.
But you know what's funny too is I think because I went through this experience so early and multiple times that my kids will actually tell you what they can have and what they can't. Like
they're older.
Yeah, they know. They know. Even I feel like even when Devin was smaller, like he would be like, no, I can't eat that, because I told him early on, you know.
Dude, one time we took Devin to SeaWorld. We went with Tony. We all took the kids, and he was allergic to the fish in the atmosphere. It was giving him an allergic reaction.
Allergic to fish.
Yes. So like red? We saw like the Shamu show and all of this stuff, and they're feeding them the fish, and we were kind of closed up, but nobody touched anything, and we made sure not to eat the fish legs or any fish sticks.
Fish legs. What is that?
And dude, he was getting like a reaction. We're like, oh my god! And then he was like, oh, I'm allergic to fish, and we're like, but nobody had fish. He was like getting itchy and like kind of getting like red, and I was like, I don't know what to touch.
And then that's
this was not a good idea.
That's crazy too, because some things like you have to actually ingest for it to like give a reaction. And then for him, like the fish, smell. He doesn't even like just being in the air. I remember once, because I thought like, oh, as long as he's not eating it, he's fine. But my family had like a fish fry or something one year, and just from the fish being fried in the house, oh my god, he was a mess. His eyes were like swelling, he was watering, and I'm like, you didn't even touch it. Like no one touched him or anything, but just because of it in the air.
What about like a fish tank? Can you have a fish tank?
We had a fish, and he was fine like feeding it and everything, but I don't think he actually ever physically touched it.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
So wait, what's the scariest allergic reaction that your kids have?
Any of them?
So for
where
Devin,
you had to use the EpiPen.
Well, thank God I've never had an incident where I have to use the EpiPen, because I'm always so cautious about it, and then they are too. Like they know, and
if they start to feel different,
and then they know too what to like what to stay away from or what they can't have. And even with like early on telling them like, okay, Peyton, like if someone at school offers you candy, you can't just take candy from anyone, because if it's a peanut butter M&M or a peanut M&M, that's going to be bad for you. So I know you like candy, but you can't take it. And luckily I've never like had an incident where I had to use the EpiPen. But for Devin, his worst one would probably be the dog episode. And then for Peyton, I think his worst episode would be at school. And two, now schools have different tables too, because so many kids
like
now, this generation are like so allergic to peanut butter. And I'm like, I took like a peanut butter sandwich to school like every day. Peanut butter and jelly was like, I feel like I ate that 5 days a week. But a kid was at the peanut butter table, he was at the non-peanut butter table, and I think like someone didn't wash their hands or something, and the boy came over and was like playing with Peyton, and then they called me like, yeah, you need to come pick up Peyton. He was like all swollen and looked like the Elephant Man and just a mess. And then Harley's.
And what do you do when they have that reaction? Just give them
medicine. You can't do anything.
They have their medication on file at all of the schools, and they gave him like the Benadryl and everything, but he didn't go into anaphylactic shock, which is when you like stop breathing and all that stuff. So thank God. So they just gave him the Benadryl, and after a while, the Benadryl works. They get sleepy and everything, but it definitely helps. And then for Harley's was maybe last year or something, we went to the park and there was a squirrel, and I think there was already a peanut on the ground, and she wanted to feed. Yeah, somebody had previously been feeding the squirrels, like because there were like peanut shells and stuff in the area, and I guess I didn't know, but I guess she picked it up to like feed the squirrel, and so she threw it at the squirrel, and we're still at the park like having a picnic, and then I look at her and I'm like, what the hell? I need to post those pictures too. I think I have pictures of my kids when they have, like, I don't mind.
You gotta find them
so they can see. And literally, her eye was closing. It was watering. We had to like rush home. We were like throwing the stuff in the car because I had Benadryl, but it was so bad that I was getting scared. And I think that was her worst one. She didn't go into shock or anything, but just the look of it, just enough for you to be like, what the hell?
So wait, so with your first one, his allergic reaction was to an animal. It wasn't even to a food. And then you found out that he was allergic to all these other foods?
Yes. And then once I did the blood test, and then that's when foods came back, all kinds of stuff. They're like,
so none of the baby foods that you had given to him previously, he never had an allergic reaction to it? No,
because I didn't even give him a lot, because I already kind of, since my husband had so many allergies, like, you know, your first child, you're reading up, you know that it could be a potential situation where he is allergic. So I kind of already knew to introduce him to things like slowly. Like, okay, one day we're going to do bananas, and then we're going to do peas, and we're going to do... So I just did things like that. I didn't do like crazy like table food and stuff, only because I knew that potentially he could be allergic to stuff.
I can't remember. Did you breastfeed him?
I tried.
And did you ever notice, like, if you had beef and you breastfed him, did he ever get gassy? Or, I mean, it was a while back, but were those, like, little signs? Were there any signs?
Wasn't one of your kids
or
allergic
even
to
any
your
of
milk?
your kids?
The middle one?
No, they all just like, it just, none of them really worked with the breastfeeding, but there wasn't none red flags that I was like, okay, what is, there wasn't never any situations like that. But what's funny is recently, maybe a few weeks ago, my husband had a big allergic reaction, and I haven't seen him have allergic reaction since we were dating, and the kids got to see him with the allergic reaction. And what's so funny is my middle son, Peyton, it's sad, but he was almost like so excited that his dad was having this.
He's because like, it's normal.
Yeah, because he kind of looks at his dad like Superman, you know. And then when and Tyler's eyes were like swelling up, like it was a real reaction. Where, what did we? So
I think we got
I think we got the car. He's always giving someone like a chance. Like anybody who's trying to like hustle and make money, he's always trying to help them. And there was a guy who was like washing cars. Like, we went to a restaurant, and he's like, oh, I'll wash your car while you're at the restaurant. So Tyler was like, okay, yeah, do it. And I guess the vacuum that he was using had previous, like, cat hair or something. So when he did the car, the cat hair and everything came back in the car. And when we were in the car, he already started, like, sneezing and, like, tripping out. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? He had what's funny is at the restaurant, he had an egg white omelet. And he thought, oh, maybe they put yolk, because he's allergic to eggs with yolk, but not egg whites. So he thought, oh, maybe they put yolk, but no. You know why you're laughing? I'll post that picture too.
I'm laughing because I'm picturing him. Remember that time we went to the Chris Stapleton concert, and
He
some
had
of the
allergic
tacos had salsa. Remember? And
like,
all of a sudden he's like, ah! He's like screaming, and he's like, there's salsa. And he's like,
But that's
so
because it
loud.
was hot, though, right?
So
It was hot.
loud.
Because it was hot, not because he was allergic,
But
right?
I'm just like picturing that in my head while he's like having his
I remember
reaction.
thinking he was like overreacting, and I'm
No.
like, dude, I'm eating it. It's not that hot.
Yeah, he is but you know what? They laughed at him. So Peyton thought it was like the most amazing thing that his dad had an
Gets
allergic
the,
reaction.
allergies, too.
Yeah, it was.
That's
It
really
was-
cute though that he had that.
It was a big. His
Yeah.
eye was closing, and I was like, "See, this is where you get it from."
How
kids.
did you guys
don't
figure
get
out
from
that
me."
it was a cat hair in the vacuum?
Because after we like came home and he had to take Benadryl, like it was almost like, have you seen Hitched?
Yeah.
When Will Smith,
Yes.
that's what it reminded me of. He was
that
like drinking
bad?
yeah, it was that bad. And then when we got home, we like figured it out. We knew what it was because then the next day when he was in his car,
He
like
got
it
it
started
again?
again. He was
Okay.
like, "What is not going away? What's going on?" And then once he's like, "No, this is," and he knows his allergies. Obviously, he's like, "This is not like a food allergy." He's like, "This is like almost like a pet." And then like after I guess really doing some research, he's seen all the like cat hair in
Okay.
his car and figured out
So
that's
who
what it was.
cleaned the car?
I didn't clean the car. I don't know if he took it again, but because I'm not.
That
I'm
is
a little
too
bit
funny.
sensitive to cats too. I think
Okay.
a lot of people are sensitive to cats.
I just don't like cats.
You don't?
No,
Ooh,
like
all
there's
them
their
cat fans?
eyes,
Hot.
like evil eyes. I'm like, oh my
Where they have the cat eye.
where that's like red. Oh my
She
That's
god.
loves
so
cats.
funny.
Guys, don't listen to her.
I'm a dog person.
But I know people who have cats that are allergic to their
What?
own cats, and they take their own, like they take
Oh,
their
they
their
love
brisket.
cats then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like now, how do you introduce new foods to them? Do you
Well,
are you
sorry.
afraid like now, or do you kind of
Already know.
know and
Well, I do stay away from the foods that they were allergic to. However, you can grow out of your allergies. So, for instance, for my oldest son, he grew out of a lot of his allergies. Like before he couldn't have milk, he couldn't have cheese, he couldn't have.
and how
A
did you find out
variety
that he
of
grew out of it?
things.
Because you would give just a little bit, or what?
So the allergists, actually too, my kids have such bad allergies that they would do allergy studies. Because my husband,
What?
yeah. So my husband, his allergies were so bad that he did studies through Orange County Children's Hospital when he was little. He would go on the weekend and they would try all
you
these
get
new
paid
things.
for that?
You do.
Wow.
They would try all these new like nasal sprays they would give him for a week, and then he would
That's
have
funny.
to chart like if it worked, if it helped and everything, and then he would get a paycheck. So he told me about it, like, you know, maybe you should do this with Devin and see, because they may have something that actually works for him because his allergies were getting so bad. So I signed him up and we would do it weekly. And what's funny is the same allergist that was working with my husband was now working with Devin. She was still
my
there.
gosh, how
And
funny.
she remembered my husband. And she was like, I remember. And sometimes I tend to think
That's
my
so
husband
funny.
overdoes his stories. I'm like, yeah, sure, it happened like that. But like the lady like confirmed, she was like, I was just intrigued with him. She was like, because I never seen a little boy that was allergic to so many
Everything.
things, but he had such a positive attitude about things and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, that's so interesting to hear. So doing those studies, they would tell you how to introduce different things when they're on a nasal. Say, for instance, they gave us a new nasal spray or something. They would say like, okay, during this period would be the time where you want to introduce him to something after it's been like a few years, and you feel like, okay, if you want to slowly introduce like a little bit of milk and cereal, like introduce that, see how he does. If he has a reaction, then go to your Benadryl or nasal spray, and then we know to cross that out. Then later, while we're on that study, then you introduce something else, see how it works.
cool.
Yeah. So that's
because
the time.
it's monitored.
Yes.
So you're
So
okay.
that's the time that I would like slowly introduce things for him, and slowly introducing things, like it got better, and that's how we knew that he grew out of a lot of them. So right now he's gonna be 15, and I feel like the only thing that's still with him is he still can't have peanut butter, and he's still allergic to seafood. But so far it seems like he grew out of dogs in general because he's been around a lot of other dogs and he's been fine. And a lot of the food allergies. The milk, he eats cereal, he can eat ice cream, he can eat cheese. So a lot of those allergies he actually did grow out. Also, what seems to come hand in hand with allergies too is asthma. So he had like really bad asthma that went along with the allergies, but now he hasn't used an asthma pump, I think, and since he was like 9, he hasn't used an asthma pump. So he grew out of a lot of them.
So how do you plan your meals around all of their different allergies?
So our house is boring because we don't, if somebody's allergic to it in the house, we're not eating it. So basically what they eat in the house is basically like turkey and chicken because that's safe with everyone. And then occasionally I'll make like my husband or Devin like steak or something because they can eat it. But I kind of try to stay away from the things according to who's in the house. Now, if one of the kids leave, like my oldest, since he's allergic to seafood, like if he leaves or something and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna cook shrimp or something like that. So I kind of base it off of them and whatever.
So you kind of keep it safe,
myself.
But if somebody's leaving, then you'll
to keep my own sanity because I'm like, I can't, like, what you're allergic to, it gets like overwhelming. So I just kind of keep it simple and just find new ways. I mean, you can make chicken a whole bunch of different ways. You get like you can
you send some recipes because I feel like I'm always like
you can saute it, you can grill it, you can make it teriyaki, you can make it hot, you can make it taste different a little bit.
Do you pack their school lunches?
Yes, none of my kids have ever done a school lunch. I mean, I wish that they could. Honestly, I don't see now I heard the food is getting bad. But
do you make it yourself?
I make their lunch.
Or are they from like
well, no, I heard. I don't know. No offense about school lunch, but people like said it's not healthy. Like they just give them whatever. Oh. I don't know.
Which I've always heard that they're not like the healthiest.
And some kids don't like it. She loves it.
Legit food.
Well, back in the day, I used to love those little like chalupa little things they used to have and all that. I used to love the school lunch. Like I would go up there on summer school and get the school lunch. So
so the school has an emergency bag. Now when they're gonna go to a babysitter or like a friend to spend the night, sleepover, whatever, do you have like, how do you prep that family? Like, hey, if my kid eats something or touches
I always send it, but I also too, I'm like picky about where my kids go spend the night according to how the parent is. Like I'm watching and like if it's someone I'm like, oh, they're on it, they'll because it's serious, my kids allergies. And two, if they're not afraid, because I feel like for me, like if someone's like, oh, my kid's allergic to this and that, I'm like, yeah, so how about they don't come, So I do, I send their medicine. Right now, the only thing I'm having to send though when my kids go out is their EpiPen or Benadryl. They're good. So far we haven't had to use the EpiPen, but most likely I usually always have to send something. Or if the house that they're going to has Benadryl, then I'll just tell them like, do you have Benadryl? Because just in case. But I also tell them what to stay away from too.
Now, when they were younger and they didn't know what they were allergic to because they couldn't talk or like they were babies, would you send them a list? I'm just trying to give parents ideas that have babies or infants or toddlers that have allergies. Like, how would you? Because I know you're super organized. Like,
so
would you kind of print a list?
I would send a list along with the medication, and then kind of it came to the point where after they were over there, they went over there multiple times. Then that parent will get familiar. And then every now and then I'll have, if they go somewhere, of course they're not going to remember everything. My child, they have to worry about their own. So I'll get like a text or something like, even the kids, when they go over my aunt's house still, like, she's like, can they eat this? Can they eat turkey bacon? Like everyone always asks me like, can my kids eat this? Even my parents to this day, they're like, my grandma too, she's like, I don't remember, can Harley eat bacon, or is Peyton that can't eat bacon, or who the hell can't eat bacon? So,
my God, I give you so much credit to be able to function with all of those.
Mentally, I will say this, because I know we have to wrap it up soon, but I will say this, mentally, it is kind of draining on the parents too, and especially like watching your child like know that he can't have like it broke my heart for like
to see
Peyton couldn't have pizza, right? For a while he couldn't have pizza because he couldn't have the cheese. So whenever we would order pizza, we would take off the cheese and he would just literally have the sauce and the in the dough, and he would think like, oh, this is so good, and then he couldn't have ice cream either at one point. So he would be like, Mom, what does it taste like? I just want to know. Like he would get like all bent out of shape and everything, and it just I'm like, every kid should know what ice cream tastes like in pizza.
Wait, he's never had ice cream?
Now he can. He grew out of it. So now he knows what pizza tastes like, and he knows what ice cream. But
and it's only because of those case studies that you were able to retest. Yes. So parents, if y'all are struggling,
find a place, like find a hospital who does the allergy studies. It's you find something that works for your child, and they pay you to come out, and they pay pretty good. So it's like it's a double benefit because you're finding out,
and it's being monitored
exactly by a doctor.
Is it usually through like CHOC, the children's
hospital?
Well,
that's the one that I've been through because my husband went through CHOC, but I was told that they have them at all the hospital or children's hospitals. You just have to ask because they don't just like, oh, do this allergy study. You usually have to find out about it, but I definitely recommend it, and they work with your schedule, and it was such a benefit for me. I feel like between those and the group settings, they helped me a lot because I was ready to give the kids back.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us. If you want to catch up on our previous episodes, visit mamasmimosas.com, where you'll get access to all of our podcast show notes, our YouTube videos, and our private Facebook group, where we chat with you about each episode topic and host live Q&As with our fave mom tribe. Can't wait to see you there.